And welcome to another edition of Niners Nightly on KMBR's YouTube channel. Larry Krueger with you on this Monday. Hope everybody's having a great September the 23rd of 2024. As tonight we come to you live for an hour talking 49er football. And of course, the Niners just lost over the weekend to the Rams. So we'll get into that here momentarily. But I want to start off, and what we're going to do this hour, the first segment, we're going to get into Kyle Shanahan's presser. We talked to Kyle Shanahan today. Of course, a day after the game, the Niners now dropped to 1-2, and there can't be a 49er press conference without there being some kind of controversy. So there's a lot to talk about. So we'll get into the Niner press conference and Kyle's press conference right out of the chute here. Second segment, we're going to start reviewing the game a little bit, and I'll give you my thoughts on the 49ers offense against the Rams defense from this weekend. And then in that third segment, bottom of the hour, we will get into the Niners on the defensive side against the Rams offense. And then at 5:45, I'm going to get into what moves I'd make. I definitely have ideas of things that I would do to try to jumpstart this football team, and we'll get into that in the final segment. And of course, always good. We'll read some chats, and anybody in the chat has a great comment. I guess my first question to you guys in the chat as we get this thing rolling here on a Monday night is what exactly, what is your biggest concern after 3 games? And what's the one, if I give you one concern and one move that you would make to improve the situation? And I'll take all comers. I don't care what you say. I don't care if you say get rid of Lynch, get rid of Shanahan, get rid of Purdy. I don't care. Any ideas. Right tonight, we're going to go, what is your primary, disappointment area after 3 weeks? And then what would you do? If I gave you one move you could make, what would that move be? And of course, hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, that just helps the algorithm. More people find the stream. We've only been doing this over here on the KMBR YouTube channel for a short amount of time, so we don't get the kinds of sizes of audiences that we typically do on the Krueger show. So hit like and subscribe, and more people will find the channel in the algorithm. And then if you hit subscribe every time we go live on KMBR, you'll get a little alert. Hey, Krueg's going live on KMBR, on KMBR's YouTube channel. And you don't have to miss a minute. You don't have to miss a minute of the action. So first segment, as I said, I want to get into what Kyle got into today at the press conference. And so we had this press conference around 3:30. And he always starts by going into the injured players. And he started off with D. Winters. Now, D. Winters re-aggravated his ankle. He had hurt the ankle a few weeks back, and he hurt it again in this game. So he, it sounds like day-to-day as far as D. Winters and the ankle. That I'm sure that doesn't feel good to kind of re-pull this or sprain the same ankle. The second one was Brock Purdy is on the injured list because of back pain. Now, you sit there and go, sore back. Who's not sore? You play football, you get knocked around. Brock did get knocked around a little bit. He didn't take tons of sacks and tons of hits, but he was running for his life, and he got nicked up a bunch of times. And obviously, he's got some back pain going on because they had an MRI done of his back. So the way the Niners injuries tend to escalate. Oh, it's just a calf. Oh, it's a calf / Achilles. Oh, it's acute Achilles tendonitis. Oh, it's, what's next for Purdy? It's his back. He's having fusion surgery. He'll be out all year. It's like, where can this potentially go? But that's never a good thing. 1, because he's your starting quarterback. 2, because he's playing his ass off. And 3, because I don't think you can win any games with the other guys. And nothing against Brandon Allen, who's been in the system for a while. I just think that when you look at what Brock Purdy actually does to lift this team up and get through the fact that it doesn't have a great the receivers are not getting great separation, and the offensive line's not doing a great job at protecting the quarterback, and they're not doing a great job at opening run lanes. And, you start looking at the situation that is the reality, and you go, well, wait a second, you're going to plug in Brandon Allen now for Brock Purdy, and you're still going to win games. You're going to plug in, Josh Dobbs for Brock Purdy, and you're going to win games. So the fact that Purdy's on the list with the MRI obviously is a concern. That's a concern. And we'll have to see where it goes from here. We'll see if he practices this week. Does he have a bulging disc? Does he have a herniated disc? Is he having numbness in his fingers and in his extremities? I mean, we just don't know. There's all kinds of things that could go on. It could be something where, hey, he just got hit a little bit and he's got some soreness, or he could have a full blown herniation and surgery and it's pressing on his spine. I mean, it's just, you just don't know. So we're going to have to wait. But the fact that he had an MRI on his back is not good news. And so, okay, wow, we're 2 sentences into the presser, and suddenly the starting quarterback had just had an MRI on his back. So that's very serious. Oh, until we got to the next one. Javon Hargrave tore his tricep. He actually played decently in the game. He had a sack, and it sounds like he's out for the year. And Kyle called it a big loss, and obviously it is. They paid him a ton of money. I don't know that he's really played to the level where he's earning that money. And I think there's a very good chance we'll never see Hargrave in a Niner uniform again. And I know people would sit there and go, oh my God, Krug, that's so over dramatic. No, it's not. It's not over dramatic at all. He's not going to be back this year unless they make a deep run to the playoffs. So it sounds like late January, early February is when you could expect Hargrave. So that's one. Second of all, I mean, you look at the guy's body. He carries a lot of weight from the waist down. He's got huge legs. You telling me that he's going to be in awesome shape at the end of the year? Probably not. So the odds of him playing again this year are remote, I would say, very remote. And then he's 2 years into this deal. I believe all the guaranteed money is in the first couple of years. He's been a colossal disappointment. They're going to be hugged up against the cap. They're going to have to pay their starting quarterback $60 million. They're going to have to look for cost savings somewhere. And the defensive tackle who's, got an overinflated, salary for his production is going to look very, very easy to be a cap casualty. So maybe they'll redo his deal. Maybe they'll figure out a way to keep him here long term. But my guess is this might be it for Hargrave. So we'll see. I mean, we may have seen the last of Javon Hargrave. And if so, what a colossal bad move that was. I mean, I hate to say it. I liked it at the time. I'll freely admit I thought it was exactly what they needed. I thought they needed a pass rushing defensive tackle in the worst way. And they got him in Hargrave, but look what they had to sacrifice. They lost Azeez Al-Shaair. They lost Jimmy Ward. They lost Hassan Ridgeway. They lost Samson Ebukam. They lost Emmanuel Mosley. I mean, they lost like 6 or 7 good heart and soul run defenders, and they really weren't that good against the run last year. The numbers, I think, were a little misleading. 49ers didn't really ever stop the run. They didn't stop it in the preseason. They only really stopped it when teams just quit running because the Niners offense, put up so many points that they just were like, oh, we can't run anymore. So they kind of outscored the Giants from running and the Dallas Cowboys from running and the Eagles late in the year from running and Pittsburgh in week 1 from run. These teams didn't want to run in the second half because they were 2 touchdowns down. So, but did the Niners ever really stop the run? Not really. They didn't stop the run well in the preseason. They didn't stop the run at all against Green Bay and Detroit in the playoffs. They were only slightly better in the Super Bowl. So, that was a concern. I mean, you added Hargrave, who's a pass rusher. He added a little pass rush, but you traded all these really good, solid run defenders for that pass rush. And I think the net result was your defense got worse. It's a big name defense. I mean, you see Hargrave and Bosa and, Leonard Floyd, and you're like, oh, big names, but they really don't play to their level. Maybe none of the three actually at this point, but Hargrave especially. I mean, he's got a big name and a big rep and not a lot of game at this point. So how big of a loss is it? Well, I mean, it's a big loss because he's in his physical prime. And what do you do? I mean, Kyle suggested maybe Kalia Davis, who looked amazing in the preseason. He maybe had his best game as a pro. He did have his best game as a pro and he looked great, but he's got skinny little legs. And I don't know that he's going to be able to really be durable for any period of time. They're hoping to get him back Soon. How soon? It doesn't sound like it's going to be in the next week or two. So maybe by midseason you can get Kalia Davis back, and then realistically, how long can he stay healthy? I mean, that's the big question with Kalia. They have Evan Anderson, who's very talented. He's a kid that's losing weight and trying to get in pro shape and trying to cut out the baby fat and kind of hone his body. And he probably needs a redshirt year on the practice squad, to be completely honest. So I don't know that he's even an option to get pulled off the practice squad. T.Y. McGill is. T.Y. McGill is a veteran. They'll probably go immediately to T.Y. McGill. I would say immediately T.Y. gets activated going forward, probably, for the next few weeks, unless he falls on his face. But I would say T.Y. probably gets the activation, and then when Kalia Davis gets healthy, they'll choose between T.Y. and Kalia. And then if Evan Anderson can shed 30 pounds and, maybe he's a late in the year guy. I know that he's working, but he does seem like a guy who's very raw, who they're kind of taking a long-range redshirt view with. So that was one of the things that came up. Obviously the injuries. That was first and foremost. And then Kyle was questioned about how he ended the first half, or how he ended the game, I should say, where in the past they've been very conservative about not giving the ball back to their opponent when their opponent maybe could get a chance to score either at the end of the second quarter or at the end of the game. And, he's like, hey, we were trying to win it. So he was asked why, with 1:51 left on the clock in the fourth quarter, did you allow LA to get the ball back late in the fourth quarter? And he's basically saying, hey, we were trying to win it. We were trying to win it. But yeah, anybody could look at Shanahan's clock management in the second quarter at different points in his tenure here with San Francisco and say that he's been at times Jerry Falwell-like conservative, and other times he's like not. He's like, let's go for it. And it doesn't seem like there's any real rhyme or reason to it. Very, very conservative at the end of the first half in Super Bowl 54. But very, very aggressive with Josh Johnson with his final possession in the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia a couple years later. So, I mean, and why? Very conservative with Brock Purdy in the way he called the game in the Dallas playoff game, and Brock's, I think, second playoff start. He was very conservative, but then very, let it all hang out when, they were behind and Josh Johnson was backed up. It was very weird. So Shanahan's got, I don't know that he has a philosophy or as much as it's a feel. And when he wants to go for it, he goes for it. And when he wants to be super hyper conservative, he is. In this case, they could have been conservative and played for overtime. Instead, they went for it and they gave the ball right back to the Rams, who made them pay and got out of there with a win in the field goal. So, what can you say? What can you say? It was a bad loss for the Niners. He was also asked about Talanoa Hufanga, and he said he thought he had a good first game back. He said he looked good on the film. He's obviously trying to work his way back into shape. It was revealed today that CMC traveled to Germany, or is maybe in Germany, visiting doctors who are Achilles tendon specialists. And Kyle said, hopefully it will help. I mean, look at the escalation of this. It's a calf. It's a calf / Achilles. It's Achilles tendonitis. And now he's getting on the bird to cross the pond to go to Germany to visit an Achilles specialist. That sounds like he's at a career crossroads. That sounds like he's got a lot of pain and doesn't want to have the ruptured Achilles surgery, but doesn't know what to do. And I don't know. I don't know if it's one of these plasma injection, platelet-rich deals. I have no idea what kind of procedure, what's the nature of the procedure. Kyle was not specific about it. But, I mean, think about that for a second. Christian McCaffrey's in Germany looking for a solution to his acute Achilles tendonitis. That's not good. I mean, that is absolutely not good. Kyle was asked about Dre Greenlaw today, and he said, at the beginning of the year, he was hoping for midseason. He said he's still a ways away, but he's still hoping for midseason. Why did that question come up? Because Devondre Campbell is a nightmare. He's nowhere close to Dre Greenlaw. And the Niners missed Dre Greenlaw in the worst way. Oh, my God. They have gone like 5 levels down, dropping from Greenlaw to Campbell. D. Winters was brought in for Campbell. I think Eric Branch was that a reflection on Devondre's play? And Kyle was like, no, that was not a reflection on Devondre's play. Let me answer that for you, Eric. Yes, that is a direct relation to Devondre's play. Okay, and I'll answer the question for Kyle. Kyle dodged it and said it was the two things didn't have anything to do with one another. I'll give you the truth. Devondre has not played well. The numbers show it. You can absolutely exploit him in pass coverage. He's slow. He doesn't move that well as far as agility in short areas. And absolutely, D. Winters came in for Devondre Campbell because Devondre Campbell wasn't playing well. So, yes, it means they are not happy with Devondre Campbell, regardless of what Kyle said. And then Kyle was asked about Jacob Cowing. This is another really interesting one. Friday, John Lynch told the KNBR Morning Show, expect to see Jacob Cowing. Thinking this game with the Rams could be a bust-out spot for Cowing. Now it's Friday. So I asked Shanahan about that. I'm like, Kyle, what's the deal? Is this we going to see Cowing? He's like, I don't know. Maybe. And then he was asked today, are we going to see Cowing? He's like, he still has a ways to go. We'll let you know when he's ready, but he's not ready now. So I don't know if it was the punt that he kind of blew, the muffed punt, or if it's just a lack of strength or a lack of knowing the plays, or I don't know. But Kyle said Cowing's not ready to go today. Lynch made it sound like Friday that he was ready to go, and we were going to see more of him. So are these guys even on the same page? I think you got to ask that question. Kyle was also asked about the play where Brock did not see BA open down the field, and said that Brock was surprised that BA was open, and that it happened sometimes, and that Purdy didn't know where BA was, didn't know he wasn't where he was supposed to be, and by the time he realized where he was, and that LA had busted the coverage, that he couldn't get him the ball. So that was what he shared about Ayuk. And then he was asked about Mooney Ward. He says Mooney's healthy. Mooney's practicing. He's healthy. He was asked about George Kittle's health. He says Kittle's going to return to practice this week. He was asked about if he was surprised that LA, who normally goes with a lot of 11 personnel, went with a 12 personnel with the two tight ends. And he's like, no, we kind of expected it. With the injuries to their wide receivers, that they would go with 12 personnel. It's a one-back offense, so you're either going with 11 personnel or 12 personnel. 11 personnel is 3 wides, 1 back. 12 personnel is 1 back, 2 tight ends. Well, with the injuries at wide receiver, they went with a lot of 12 personnel. And Kyle said it wasn't a surprise to the Niners at all. And then Kyle was kind of asked about, hey, what's your assessment of this game? And, how'd you guys lose this game? And he basically said, hey, look, the key was 3 balls that went up top for 130 yards. 2 of them were PI penalties, the result of guys not playing with poise on the ball in the air, and 1 was a 50-yard completion to Tutu Atwell against Mooney Ward. So he's like, those 3, they went 3 balls over the top of her head. It resulted in 130 yards. And Kyle thought that was the difference in the ball game. I thought that was a huge difference as well. The Niners got burned by the verticals. The Rams saw Justin Jefferson beat the Niners down the field with a vertical. They knew it was available, and they went to it when they needed it. And Yadam can't run well enough to defend the verticals. Mooney might not be able to run well enough to defend the verticals. They need to get Renardo Green on the field for Isaac Yadam. We'll get into some of those decisions. But, yeah, that was the big key in this game. 3 deep balls that equated to 130 yards of offense for the Rams. 2 on PI penalties, 1 on a 50-yard completion from Stafford to Tutu Atwell against Mooney Ward. So that was it right there. I mean, the vertical passes, you got to be able to defend the vertical passes, and the Niners really couldn't. And that was really the ball game. I mean, there's a few other things we could point to, of course, but man, it's too bad. Jennings had an amazing game, career game for Jennings, but the Niners fall short. All right, that's what Kyle got into today at the presser. This is what we're gonna do right here. We're gonna take a quick timeout. We'll be gone for a minute or so, get a pull of water, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about what happened with the Niner offense. We'll start there. Then we'll flip it over in the next segment and talk about what happened with the Niners defense and special teams. And in the final segment, I'll give you the moves that I would make if I ran the 49ers and I could do anything I wanted with this roster. I'll tell you what exactly I would do later on this hour. But first, we'll take a timeout right here, get a pull of water, and we'll be back in a few on Niners Nightly on KNBR's YouTube channel. All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger with you on this September the 23rd. Hopefully you're having a good day. It is a warm day out here in the creek. Niners off today, of course, the day after the game. The players' off day is tomorrow, so we won't be down in Santa Clara tomorrow. And then Wednesday. Wednesday we'll be there. We'll talk to Kyle Shanahan. Thursday, Sorensen, Chris Forster, Brock Purdy. We'll talk to some players this week. Friday we'll talk again to Kyle Shanahan. And then of course on Sunday, Niners, Patriots. And we'll get into the Patriots later on this week. We may even visit with some people from Boston. I got to call up my buddy Gresh and see what Gresh has got going on. See if we can talk some Pats with Gresh, who's a fantastic sports talk show host. And you've probably heard him before on CBS Sports Radio. All right, let's get into a little review on the game. Okay. First of all, the six highest graded offensive players for the 49ers against the Rams, according to PFF. Number one, Brock Purdy, 91.1 grade. Number two, Juwan Jennings, the Niners' best wide receiver, 90.5 grade for JJ. Number three on the list, Trent Williams. Trent Williams played well in this game. Not as high as those guys, 74.3, but still third highest grade on the offense. Fourth highest grade on the offense, Aaron Banks. So the left side of the line were graded pretty highly. Isaac Guerendo comes in at number 5 at 65.9. It was good to see Guerendo get a little bit more run in this game. And number 6 was Jordan Mason at 64.2. Those are the top 5 highest graded guys for the 49ers. Now, let's get into some of the issues as far as what's going on. The 49ers are not getting yak yardage at all. The 49ers are averaging 3.1 yards after the catch per reception. That's last in the NFL, dead last. And it's an incredible drop-off from a group that has led the NFL in this category in every season, really in recent memory. Last year, every year dating back to 2018, the 49ers have led the NFL in yards after the catch per reception. They never averaged from 2018 to 2023. They never averaged fewer than 6.2 yards after the catch per reception in any of those years. They're half that right now, 3.1 yards per reception. So what has happened? One of the things that's really clear when you look at some of the next gen stats numbers is the Niner receivers are not getting separation. I threw that to Brock Purdy. He's like, I don't know if that's true. I do know it's true. According to next gen stats, they're getting the least separation of any wide receiver group or any receiver group in the NFL. Carolina was a close second coming into week 3. So that's a big part of why they're not getting yards after the catch. They're completing passes to receivers who are getting tackled because the defender's right there. So the lack of separation is definitely hurting some of the yards after the catch. The other thing that's hurting yards after the catch is the Niners' weapons are slow. Really, really, really slow. I mean, there's no 4-2 guy. There's no Xavier Worthy. There's no 4-3 burner. I mean, you can have Jacob Cowing and he can run 4-3, but if you don't play him, you don't feel the impact of that. So Cowing is your wide receiver speed. He doesn't get on the field. Terrace Marshall runs 4.37. He's wide receiver speed. He's on the practice squad. He doesn't get on the field. Ayuk, Debo, these are not burners. These are not guys who take the top off the defense. There's no Ted Ginn there. There's no world-class speed. So that's a big part of it. They don't have the dynamic athletes on the perimeter, and the receivers they have are not getting much separation, and thus their yards after the catch numbers are not very good. So that's a big part of it. They're not nearly as dynamic. Now, the other main difference is the 49ers are facing stacked boxes on offense a ton because everybody saw Jordan Mason rumble against the Jets in week 1 for 150. And so now everybody's like, you know what, we're putting 8 in the box. And we'll put 8 in the box and play man-to-man behind it. And, we'll give Purdy some rush lanes and we'll see if he takes them. We think he wants to hang in the pocket. He's reluctantly taking some of those rush lanes now, but that's really it. The Niners are running into stacked boxes a lot. And because opposing teams know that the 49er weapons are relatively slow and can't separate, they're just playing man-to-man and saying, you know what? Daring Kyle to throw the ball. Throw the ball. Throw the ball, Kyle. That's what they're daring him to do. So that's a problem. That is a problem. Now, Brock Purdy, is playing at a pretty high level. His Pro Football Focus grade yesterday, 91.1. That was the second highest of his entire career. Think about it. I mean, he had 8 incompletions on the afternoon. 4 of them were drops. So he would have had another additional 42, yards passing, without the drops, you're looking at a guy who threw for like 334. So that's a big one. That's a big one right there. Brock Purdy's playing well. He's accurate down the field. He's running around. He's making plays left and right. And that's it. I mean, that's it right there. I'm going to let's see if maybe I could share the screen on this. This is an interesting little graphic this shows passing and rush defense. We'll use that. We'll use that later on. But if you look at the way Purdy's playing, he's throwing the ball with accuracy. He's throwing the ball into tight windows. But the Niners are facing stacked boxes, 8+ defenders in the box at 38.5% of their offensive snaps. That is by far the highest rate in the National Football League. That's 9% higher than any other team in pro football. I mean, that's dramatic. That's how much teams are stacking the box against the Niners. To put this into perspective, the difference between the Niners and the second team, the Titans, who are at 29.5%, is the same as the second is to the 14th team. So the Niners are far and away getting the most defenders in the box. They're getting stacked boxes left and right. People are saying, we're not going to let Jordan Mason beat us. We will dare Brock Purdy to beat us with these slowish weapons, and we'll play man-to-man. And you know what? We'll turn our head on the quarterback, and if he wants to take off and run, he can take off and run. And that's what he's done the last couple of games. He's taken off and he's run. He's taking advantage of some of those numbers. But that's really the thing. I mean, I thought, the penalties obviously hurt a ton. 49ers had over 100 yards in penalties. So the penalties hurt. The lack of yak is dramatic. 49ers yak is second worst in the NFL. Last year it was 5th best. Brandon Ayuk this season is minus 1.2 yak over expectation. That's the 6th worst of any receiver in all of football. Ayuk it was their separation a lot. A lot of the Niner receivers didn't get tons of separation in the past. Ayuk was the guy. Ayuk would get separation. Ayuk is averaging 2.1 yards of separation per target. That's the third worst number in the entire league. So Ayuk has lost some dynamic big play ability, and he's not separating. And yet still, Brock Purdy with no Debo, no CMC, no Kittle, Ayuk, a shell of his former self, Trent working his way back into shape, operating behind a line that's not really protecting him at a high clip. He's still at a 137.1 passer rating. And that's the ninth highest passer rating in a loss going back to 2020. So, I mean, hardly anybody loses and plays as well as Brock Purdy played. But the penalties were a killer. And to me, I mentioned this to Greg and John. The biggest penalty was the Hughes check penalty. The 49ers had a 96.8% chance of winning with 4 minutes and 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter. This according to Next Gen Stats. And the following play was a 1st and 10 handoff to the rookie running back, Isaac Guerrero. And what happened was it got called back because of a hold on Kyle Juszczyk. And if you watch the game, you're like, hold call, negates a mediocre run. What's going on? Not that big of a deal. The Niners would have been 2nd and 5 on the Rams 37 with 4 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. Instead, because of that penalty, they were 1st and 20 on their own 48. And the drive eventually ended with Jake Moody missing a 55-yard field goal. But that was a crushing holding call on Juszczyk. If that holding call doesn't get called on Juszczyk, the Niners are 2nd and 5 on the 37. They're basically run the ball a couple times, get the ball down to, minute or so and kick the field goal and get out of there. Play a little defense at the end, maybe. But you're getting out of LA with the win. Instead, 1st and 20 leads to a long field goal attempt. You miss the field goal attempt. And it's just, obviously the loss followed after. So, it's just a very, very frustrating time to be a 49er fan because on one hand, you got a lot of weapons. So it's like, hey, you got a lot of weapons. That's good. But they're all hurt. You got a lot of weapons that are hurt right now. And, that's a crusher. Brock Purdy's average target separation, by the way, just so for those of you going, well, Krueger, are these receivers really separating or not? What do the numbers really show? Brock Purdy's average target separation is 2nd worst. And he's been pressured the 6th most in the NFL. So his target separation is 2.9 yards. So, but if you look at where he ranks in the NFL, completion percentage over expectation, 1st. Passing yards, 2nd. EPA, 2nd. Yards per attempt, 2nd. Passer rating, 5th. Completion percentage, 7th. If you look closely at these numbers, I mean, the Niners' struggles offensively are kind of hiding the fact that Brock, in the midst of this, is having a pretty incredible season. So, let's take a time out here. We're going to come back. We'll talk about the defense because that's, to me, the offense. Was it awesome? No. Is the O-line great? No. Are the Niners receivers slow? Yes. Do the Niners have problems going forward with no CMC and no Kittle and no Debo? Of course. But the bigger problems for this team, I think, are on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll get into that coming up next as we continue. And leave us your comments. What are you most concerned about as far as the 49ers going into week 4? After 3 games, what are you most concerned about? And what is the one move you would make to switch things up? We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll look at the defensive side of the ball as we continue on Niners Nightly. All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger with you on the Sports Leaders YouTube channel tonight, and we're here every night, and when we're not on the radio. And so I think, believe it or not, this week the Giants play night games Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. So we'll be on YouTube tonight, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday. Thursday we'll be on the radio, and you can catch us from 6 to 7, of course, on the Sports Leader. All right, let's get into the 49ers on the defensive side of the ball, because to me, this is kind of the bigger deal. Our good friend Nicholas McGee, who's a big Niner supporter, he follows them out in London. Met Nicholas, great guy, a lot of Niner fans in London. Niners own London, absolutely own London. Nicholas McGee tweeted this today. He said, linebacker is an absolute black hole without Greenlaw. The 49ers can't continue with Yadam at cornerback 3 over Renardo Green. He goes on to say they need to think about right tackle. They need to think about center. And crucially, quote, they cannot continue to have a 4th-round pick with 4.3 speed, i.e. Jacob Cowing, sitting on the bench as a 7th rounder from a year ago. Ronnie Bell drops perfectly thrown balls. Unacceptable usage of personnel. Love that. I love that from Nicholas McGee. And I agree. I agree with Nicholas McGee, and I think his first point is the most compelling point. They are their linebacker position went from the best in football to a mess without Dre Greenlaw. Devondre Campbell can't cover. He was targeted 3 times yesterday. He gave up a perfect passer rating of 158.3. He was targeted 3 times. He gave up 3 catches for 53 yards. He had a PI penalty where he had to wrap up the guy because he couldn't cover him. He also gave up a touchdown on that slant. Perfect passer rating is what Stafford had when he targeted Devondre Campbell. You went from Dre Greenlaw, who's a borderline all-pro guy, just absolutely one of the best players on your football team, to a guy who cannot cover. And you cut Jalen Graham this summer, who really outplayed him, just because you were trying to justify the free agent signing, which is the 2nd year in a row they have done this. Last year, Deshaun Jameson cut. Why? Because Isaiah Oliver was the big free agent signing in the offseason. Can't cut Oliver. Jed may say something. How about this? How about you just go with the best players instead of having all these sacred cows and all this insider, you need an explanation to understand why the guys that are on the team are on the team and why the guys that aren't on the team aren't on the team. I don't need explanations. The film should tell me who should play. I don't think the Niners are putting their best players on the field. I think they're putting guys on the field they think they need to put out there because it justifies the moves they made in the offseason. Devondre Campbell's not the best coverage linebacker they can put on the field. And the fact that they pulled him off for Winters is revealing as hell. Okay? And then Isaac Yadam also was targeted 5 times. He gave up 5 catches for 52 yards. Matthew Stafford had a 110 QB rating when he targeted Isaac Yadam. And he also had a PI penalty. And to cut Sam Womack and then to go with Yadam was the wrong move. But then to keep going with Isaac Yadam when you have Renardo Green, and Yadam is slow and doesn't have the ability to mirror receivers, and Green runs in the 4.4s and is a much better coverage player. That's one of those things I think we got to see right away. So that kind of stood out. The 49ers defensively, it's their 49er defensive EPA through the first 3 weeks. Their rush defense EPA is 4th worst in the NFL. They can't stop the run. They cannot stop the run right now. That's a big part of their problem. And you look at the 49ers, you look at them compared to like Seattle, for example. Mike McDonald is the new head coach there, the former Ravens defensive coordinator. The Niners are giving up 6.1 yards per play defensively. That's 3rd worst in the NFL. The Seahawks with Mike McDonald, 3.9. That's the best mark in the NFL. I mean, seriously, it's really ridiculous. Pressure percentage, Niners 21.7%. Seattle is 30%. They don't only have their best pass rusher right now. The Niners blitz 6.5% of the time. That's the lowest blitz rate in the league. It's amazing. The 49ers have gone from one of the best defenses in football to one of the worst. And Seattle last year was one of the worst defenses. They hire Mike McDonald, and suddenly their defense looks like it's turning a corner. And they look like they've got a good defense and a good thing going. So, it's amazing how fast things change. The one thing that the Niners, I think, ought to really look at is they got to find some pass rush. They got to find some more pass rush. It's a rush and cover game on defense in that order. So you got to rush the passer, and then you got to play coverage behind it. The Niners pass rush is not getting home. I mean, if I'd be on the phone with Joe Douglas right now saying, here's a 3rd round pick for Hassan Reddick. And all these people are like, oh, Hassan Reddick's not going to go anywhere unless he gets an extension. He's not getting an extension. So, he can stay where he wants. He can go somewhere. I don't think he's getting an extension. So all that talk about, well, you know what, he's not going anywhere because he's, or if you trade for him, you're going to have to give him an extension. I don't necessarily think that's the case. The other thing that really, stood out is special teams. And God, the special teams. I mean, we can point to a lot of things, right? We can point to the offense. The Niners scored 2 quick touchdowns. They didn't score again until there was 7 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. So offensively, it wasn't like they were lighting the thing ablaze. But and I thought they should have targeted Tre'Davious White more often. He's old, he's slow, he's beat up. They targeted him 5 times. They completed 3 balls and a touchdown. They got a couple penalties, I believe, against him. I would have liked to have seen them target him more. But the defense and the special teams, to me, was the bigger issue. I mean, you miss a field goal. You let Xavier Smith have a long punt return at the worst moment in the 4th quarter. The Rams had a fake punt that everybody should have seen coming, and the Niners claimed they saw it coming, but they couldn't stop it. So the special teams were really, really disappointing. I'd blame the defense probably first, just because the defense allowed scoring drives on LA's last 4 offensive possessions. That's too many. Leonard Floyd was awesome in week 1. He did nothing in the last 2 weeks. As I said, Devondre Campbell allowed a 158.3 passer rating when targeted. So he gave up, basically no pushback at all. The Niners were going up. Their Niners D-line is supposed to be one of the best D-lines in football. Hargrave, you paid him a ton. Collins, Bosa, Floyd. You're going up against a Rams offensive line that's super depleted. And that Rams offensive line in the 2 previous weeks against Detroit and Arizona had given up 21 hits on Stafford. How many did the Niners get? 5. So the 49er D-line's not doing their job. Absolutely not doing their job. And then you look at that, you look at the Niners on the offensive line side. We even mentioned this, but they gave up 16 pressures and a sack. McKivitz allowed 5. Trent gave up 3 for Brendel, 2 for Pooney, 2 for Banks, 1 for Saubert. I mean, the Rams offensive line, which was supposed to be an absolute mess, gave up 12 pressures. The Niner offensive line, which was basically fully intact, gave up 16. I mean, it's and if you can name anybody on that Rams defensive line, go for it. Most people couldn't. So on this nameless, faceless line that doesn't have Aaron Donald anymore, you gave up 16 pressures on Brock Purdy, but your killer defensive line with Bosa and Floyd and Hargrave and all these big money guys, and Bosa was the 2nd pick in the draft, and he was defensive player of the 12 pressures, 4 less pressures than your opponent had. So, the defense fell apart in the second half, and that's a real problem. The secondary looks really slow. 2 weeks in a row, they've gotten beat up top by verticals, and that really, really hurts because if a team can score in one play, you got to make it more. You got to make it more challenging than, hey, they can score in one play. And that's what happened. They scored in one play. They went up top. And you heard Kyle say it today at the presser. He's like, the number one reason we lost is, he did blame the special teams, but he blamed the defense too. Now, a lot of people feel that Kyle doesn't take accountability. And hey, what about the offense? But I would agree with him that I would blame the defense and the special teams before I would blame the offense, but there's enough blame to go around. That's for sure. All right, let's do this. Let's take one more time out. Let's come back and talk about enough bitching, enough complaining. Let's talk a little bit about some solutions. Do we have solutions? I'm an answer guy. I'm a solution guy. And I got a few of them coming up next. Stick with me. It's Niners Nightly on the Sports Leaders YouTube channel. All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger with you on KNBR's YouTube channel. We're 45 minutes into our 1 hour extravaganza, and we're here in this window from 6 to 7 o'clock on KNBR's YouTube channel, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 when we're not on the radio. Eventually, it will be on both YouTube and the radio when Giants baseball comes to a conclusion, which will be here in the next week or so. So you'll be able to catch this on the radio from 6 to 7, and we'll take a lot more phone calls. It'll be a lot more interactive as we go throughout the season. But we're starting early in the year with lots of these shows on YouTube. And, of course, I do the Krug Show on YouTube all the time, so I'm a big fan of getting on YouTube and doing our thing. And this segment, the final segment tonight, I want to get into, okay, I complained about the offense. I complained about the defense. I complained about the special teams. How about some freaking solutions? Don't just be a problem guy. Don't just sit there. Anybody can, bitch, but can you actually come up with solutions that will help the team? Is there anything that you can add to the mix? And let's hit the chat too. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the chat that have things to say. Jedi says Kyle is stubborn. Solve that and you can walk on water, but I'm not trying to fire him. Okay. So he's stubborn, but you want to keep him. Surfbone says he wants to see Fred, Tatum Bethune, and Curtis Robinson at linebacker. I hear you. I like that too. I like that more than Devondre Campbell. Let's see. We got this going from everyone's worst nightmare. The Niners are a finesse team. We'll see about that. Michael Esparza says Drake Nugent is ready. He wants to see Drake Nugent at center. Jay Ellie replace Jake Brendel. There you go. A vote for get Brendel out of there. I've got this one from EB here. Says if the receivers catch the ball, what would Larry be talking about? Probably the kicker. Could you imagine? Just all on the kicker. The kicker. He should have made the kick. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what else. We got a bunch of people in the chat arguing with one another. And we do appreciate all your chats, by the way. Thank you for being in the chat and having your comments. All right, let's get to the solutions. All right, and some of them are going to be harsh. I'll freely admit. Number one, I think you got to cut Ronnie Bell. Bottom line is he's redundant. He's a redundant part. Your wide receiver core, more so than your running back group, more so than your tight end room, more so than your safety room or corner room. The wide receiver room has to complement one another. So Ronnie Bell has got to complement the other receivers in the room. Well, there's not a lot of speed in that room. Debo's not a burner. Chris Conley ran really well once upon a time, but he's an older player now, special teamer, not a burner per se. He's quick, but he's not a burner. Ayuk is, decent speed, but he doesn't look as explosive as he has in the past. And Jacob Cowing is your vertical speed, but he's not playing right now because Kyle says he's not ready. And then you have Terrace Marshall who's on the practice squad who runs 4.37. And you're sitting there with Ronnie Bell, and Ronnie Bell is on this team because he's got really good ball skills, but he hasn't demonstrated those ball skills all summer. He really hasn't. He has not looked like the same player he looked like last summer, this summer. He doesn't make the same catches. He doesn't have the same ball skills. He's not as automatic. It's like his ball skills have regressed, and he doesn't have the same kind of hands. So move number one is you can't have redundant parts, and you can't have wide receivers that can't run when your other wide receivers can't run. If you had Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and you have one spot on your wide receiver core and you want to give it to Ronnie Bell, go for it. That works. He'll move the chains. Those guys will, give you the chunk yardage plays that you need. But if you're the Niners and you have Debo and Ayuk and Kittle and Pearsall and guys that, move okay, but don't, aren't, there's no burners there, then guess what? You need that spot to be, to go to somebody who can really take the top off the defense. So to me, I'm cutting Ronnie Bell and I'm promoting Terrace Marshall off the practice squad. I watch these guys practice all the time. Ronnie Bell does a little bit better of footwork and getting his feet down on the sideline. He's really pretty good about that. But Marshall is a pro. Marshall's bigger, stronger, faster, more explosive, and younger. That's the other thing. Terrace Marshall is actually younger than Ronnie Bell. I know most people would be like, what? Terrace Marshall's been in the league like 4 years. Ronnie Bell was like a rookie last year. I know, but Terrace Marshall is literally like 6 or 7 months younger than Ronnie Bell. So Marshall's younger, bigger, stronger, faster. That's it. And I'd play Jacob Cowing. You drafted this guy. He's got 4.3 speed. There's a reason you drafted him, because he fits. He complements what you have. You don't have guys with 4.3 speed. Well, you do now. Play Jacob Cowing. All right, so that's move number 1A. Cutting Ronnie Bell, calling Terrace Marshall off the practice squad, and I'm playing Jacob Cowing more, like right away. Number 2. I think I'm making a move in the backfield. I think I'm moving on from Patrick Taylor and adding kind of a more of a speedy running back who can be more of a dynamic playmaking game breaker. I'm thinking of the kid for the New York Giants, Dante Miller, who played at South Carolina, who runs, high 4.2s, low 4.3s, a real burner. Patrick, you have a big back. His name's Jordan Mason. You have another big back. It's Garendo. What you really need is a speed back. You need somebody that if you put him out in the pattern, that people will be like, uh-oh, don't let that guy, don't miss that tackle. That guy's taking it to the house. They don't have that. They got Patrick Taylor, and they don't seem to play him very much. So to me, I don't think you can have Taylor. I think you got to replace Taylor with a speedy playmaking running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield and be explosive. And there's a bunch of guys out there. And Dante Miller is one of them. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, everything on defense is rush and cover. So you got to put on a rush, and then you got to cover behind that. And the Niners have a bunch of young DBs. Look, Jair Brown, kid, Malik Mustafa. He's a kid. He's a rookie. You look around, they got a lot of young guys. They got a lot of young corners. They got a lot of young safeties. They have invested in the draft 3 years in a row in a lot of DBs. So they got a lot of young guys. How are you going to develop young DBs? Get a pass rush. DB's best friend is a pass rush. And Hassan Reddick is out there. Now, I know Hassan Reddick, the whole talk is, well, he wants a contract extension. He's not getting one. He didn't get one from Philly. He's not getting one from the Jets. He's probably not getting one from anybody who trades for him. So if he can get realistic and just acknowledge that he's not getting a big extension, at least not till the offseason, Hassan Reddick is a speed rusher that would look really nice opposite Nick Bosa. And if you could put heat on some quarterbacks, because Floyd did it in week 1, he hasn't done it the last 2 weeks. And look at the difference. Week 1, it seemed like Rodgers had no time. The last couple of games, the quarterbacks had way, way too much time. So they need another defensive end, and Reddick is available. You could probably get him for a third or a fourth round pick. You're inside your Super Bowl window. You got 7 young DBs that all need to develop, and they're going to lose confidence if you don't get a better pass rush. So I'm pulling the trigger on a Hassan Reddick deal. 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, some combination thereof, whatever. I'm going after Reddick. The other guy I'm going after, especially with no Javon Hargrave, is DJ Jones. If I can get DJ Jones for a day 3 pick, I think I'm doing it. Evan Anderson is out of shape. You can go with T.Y. McGill, but he's a one-gap penetrator. You got to have somebody who can stand up against the inside run and give you a little quickness. And DJ Jones can do that. He's got quickness. He's got strength. He's enormously strong. Probably one of the strongest players in the history of the 49ers. Denver's still very much in kind of a next year type mode. I think you could probably get him. He's a free agent at the end of the year. I'd be all about a day 3 pick for DJ Jones. All right, move number 5. I hate to say it because I just interviewed him the other day and I liked him, but I'd cut Devondre Campbell for a faster, younger linebacker who can run. The guy that comes to mind is Jalen Deloach, who played at Florida State and runs in the 4.4s, and he was in Tampa this summer. And I think he got cut at the cut down. He might be on Tampa's practice squad. We'll have to see about that. But Kalen Deloach is a guy that I'd be interested in. Just any linebacker with legit speed. Legit speed. There's a bunch of guys around the league that you could probably get. But a faster linebacker that can do a better job in pass coverage than Devondre Campbell. I think Campbell, he doesn't, I just don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the guy long term. I don't think he's the guy this year. I think Green Bay got rid of him for a reason. They saw real regression, and the Niners were like, come on over here. And once again, I mean, he doesn't have good numbers against the run or the pass. So Campbell, I would definitely cut for a younger, faster linebacker. And there are guys out there. Number 6, I bench Isaac Yiadom for Renardo Green, and I'm promoting Darrell Luter off the practice squad. Luter's got to play. Luter's too big, too athletic, too talented, too skilled to just sit there mired on the practice squad. This guy played a ton of press man at South Alabama. He was the Jaguars' best press man defender. He can play man-to-man, and he's big. He's rangy. I don't think he even has any idea how talented he is. He's an enormous, talented corner with legit size and arm length. I'm definitely playing him more off the I'm calling him off the practice squad. I'm activating him, but I'm starting Renardo Green up on the outside, opposite Mooney, leaving Lenore in the slot, and putting Yiadom on the bench. I think, Yiadom runs in the mid 4.5s, and he doesn't break down against double moves. Renardo Green, on the other hand, runs, sub 4.5, and I think has a lot more potential as a coverage guy. So I'm definitely making that move. And then the last move I would make is, obviously you need a defensive tackle. I would promote Kalia Davis off the IR when he's ready, or I'd promote T.Y. McGill from the practice squad. Evan Anderson, I think he's in a redshirt year, so I don't think, he's coming off the practice squad. But maybe McGill could give you some pass rush. He definitely is, he's 290 pounds. He can rush the passer a little bit. He can play the run a little bit. He's more of a one-gap penetrator than a nose guard or any kind of guy who's going to really anchor against the run. But I'd also look on the practice squad for defensive linemen. I mean, the Niners need defensive linemen. And there's got to be somebody out there that they could probably add that would help their situation a little bit. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for tonight. So those are the moves I'd make. And once again, just to summarize, cut Ronnie Bell, promote Terrace Marshall off the practice squad, play Jacob Cowing a whole lot more, cut Patrick Taylor, look for some speed off the practice squad or off the free agent market, somebody who's more dynamic at running back that you could throw the ball to, and he could make a big play. I would trade a day 3 pick for Hassan Reddick. I would trade another day 3 pick for DJ Jones. I'd cut Devondre Campbell for a faster linebacker who could be better, more of a coverage strength linebacker, not a coverage liability linebacker. I'd bench Isaac Yadam for Renardo Green. I would use Darrell Luter and activate him on game days off the practice squad. I'd promote Kalia Davis when he's ready, but until then, I'll go with T.Y. McGill off the practice squad. But I'm looking around for interior guys, and I might even look to make a trade there if I thought the right guy was out there. So, we'll see what they do. It's early in the year, but it gets early late, as they say, right? And it gets from early to late very, very, very quick. Mitchell and Ness said, Larry had me hyped when he said big things are coming for Floyd. Floyd better than Ford. Now all of a sudden we need Reddick. It's so funny, Mitchell. It's like you looked at that week 1 and you're like, yeah, look at Floyd. Look at the football IQ. Look at the motor. And the last 2 weeks, non-factor. Total non-factor. And I'll give Dieter credit. Dieter called it. He said, hey, man, this guy's not going to be as big a factor as you think. He's an older player. You never know when it goes. Sometimes it goes quick. But yeah, that's the situation really, is that, they absolutely have to have what Floyd gave them in week 1. And he didn't give them that in week 2 or week 3. So it's a major problem. All right. Tomorrow night on the show, I believe JD's going to stop by. We'll see. I'm not sure. We're going to talk to some people from Boston this week as well. Tomorrow night, back on the YouTube. Wednesday, we'll be back in Santa Clara for Niner practice, and we'll be back on YouTube on Wednesday night. Radio Thursday night at 6:00. Don't miss it. Friday, back on the YouTube. Saturday morning from, I believe, I'm not sure actually the time of the Saturday 49er forecast. I'll look that up and have that for you tomorrow night. And then, of course, Niners Pats game day, and I'll join John and Adam and Dennis for a segment on the pregame. And then, of course, the boys will have their postgame, and I'll jump on with them as well. So that does it for tonight. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching Niners Nightly. We're really enjoying it. Hopefully you guys are as well. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow on The Sports Leader.